Grip It Before You Rip It Part 2. We did a whole workout, annoyingly talking about the feet. Let's talk about the hip in relation to that so you have a greater context for what's really going on here. So why we need to get the knee out before we go in is it loves to cave inwards. Naturally, it's almost there anyways. And then we'll get the medial arch of the foot to collapse with that knee cave. So we got cave and compression, and we'll get compression at the hip socket as well. So if we just build internal rotation on top of that faulty pattern, it's just going to make it worse. It's going to more rotation at the knee, and we're not going to get it at the hip socket. So the trick is when we get the knee out, thinking more of a lateral anchor, it actually creates some space in the hip socket so I can then rotate in. So I have to go out before I go in. Might be a phrase you need to keep saying to yourself, and I do that every time I walk. Try to get the hip and knee, foot to go out, then spin inwards every time I push through my stride. So we need to train for that to happen properly. That's what we're working on a lot with foundation training, is getting better walking and hinging and bending patterns for daily practice all day long. But part of that is training. That's why we're in the gym, is we're helping to train better daily practice. Chiropractic is to help you have better daily practice. Massage and all that is to help you. Bottom of the pyramid, which is just daily movements, daily practice, things you're working on several times a day. So let's get nerdy again with it. Like we talked about 1,000 times in the workout, lifting the toes is important. This is what happens in our push-off phase of the stride. We call that the windlass mechanism. When the toes come up, and you'll feel a stiffness in the medial arch. So it should lift up, especially when the knee comes out. A lot of people have collapsed arches. They'll lay down and I'll feel that they have arches. It's just when they stand, it collapses because of the knee cave. So we get the knee out after we got the toes up, because otherwise the foot rolls, right? It'll create a medial arch, sure, not really. It'll just be rolling the foot. So we want to lift the toes. That helps secure the ball of the foot. That's right here. You'll see I think he's missing his sesamoid bones. But you'll have this ball of the big toe, and ball of the little toe, like form the front of the tripod of the foot. We're trying to keep that big one down, and yes, naturally, that will push the ball of the little toe down. When we get the knee out, and we're thinking, spread the floor from the ball of the big toe. Maybe that's one foot or both foot, depending on your position. So you can just imagine Billy here is in a split stance with the left foot forward, and I can see the knee cave, especially if he goes in a lunge, it's just going to get worse. So he's going to lift his toes, he's going to push that ball, the big toe, down. As he drives the knee out, this will help him secure a grip with the lateral arch of the foot. You have an arch here as well. And the transverse arch, it's working. That's right where the ball of the foot is. From the ball of the big toe to the ball of the little toe is your transverse arch. So if you hear me talk about 3, that's the third one. We won't get too nerdy with that one. It's working. Just know it's there. Once I got that grip with the outside edge of the foot, I've reduced the knee cave as much as I can, and I've kind of spread the floor. That should feel like your outer glute. It's pulling the hip out of the socket a little bit. Then I can gather the floor from the outside edge of the foot to help with the internal rotation of the hip socket. Let's show that a little bit better. Naturally, the femur head is already placed like this. It's just it really gets jammed in there. That'll really turn the foot out in a lot of people, or they kind of compensate with the knee. Everything kind of caves in. You can't internal rotate from here. You try to anchor, it's just going to further that valgus deformation of the knee. So we have to lift the toes. I know I said it a million times in the video. I'm annoyed myself now just saying it. Lifting the toes. And I'm not going to keep repeating this stuff. I want you to, that's why I'm making this video. So you don't have to cue the feet, because there's so many other things to cue in the body. It's a lot of things, right, foundation training, but you just get good at one and then you don't have to worry about it because you already got it down, right? But I felt it's important to come back to these feet. Lifting the toes, spreading from the ball to the big toe. So don't lift. That's very important. Don't lift the big toe, all the big toe off the ground. The big toe, right, the distal portion, but not the tarsal, right? Keep that down. Opening. And then we grab with the outside edge of the foot. That's when we can start squeezing the ground. And that squeeze should feel like it comes strongly from the adductor on the inside of the hip. You'll feel a ton of stretch. In your glute max, it runs down to the trochanter. Feel that stretch. Your piriformis will be stretching out good. You'll start to feel down the lateral aspect, like vastus lateralis, IT band area. We'll feel dramatic stretch in the haunch. So I mean by the haunch. All the way there. It kind of attaches, glute max kind of bleeds into your vastus lateralis, which goes down to your knee. So it's one connected chain. You'll feel a lot in the peroneal and tibialis anterior. Peroneal kind of sits on the outside of this fibular. That's the name for the fibularis muscles. And then tibia anterior, a little more anterior, as the name supplies. Those we want working because those are our knee stabilizers. What does a knee stabilizer do? It stabilizes and it keeps it from moving and doing funky things. So once I lift the toes, I'm already talking to my knee stabilizers. I'm starting to get the knee out. It might not feel like it goes out a lot, but you'll feel the ramping up activation in these anterior muscles here, these shin muscles, right? That's where the meat is, right there, in between these two bones, the tibia and the fibula. Those are important to feel. And even when I start anchoring, start gathering the floor inwards, you'll feel I'm still really working to hold on to the dang floor, right? The foot, outer side of the foot might be down, but you'll feel like a lack of activation here. And I'll see with that the buckling of the knee, right? And you won't get as much from the hip, if any. You might get pain, right? And that's why we kind of hack this too. This might not hurt right away, but it could start creating faulty movement patterns on top of the other faulty movement patterns, right? So we want to clear this up. If we get this right, everything up top is just going to start working so much better. What else can I say there? I think we should keep it that simple. Do the video. You start even applying this to your workouts, your kettlebells, and we did landmine thrusters and all that. A lot of fun things we can do. And even just in your daily life, daily practice. Think about the foot. Think about the foot so much that you start not having to think about it. It just naturally happens that this pattern happens. Like I said, walking is almost the hardest. It's so rapid. It's happening so fast. I think walking is easy, but it's happening very fast. That's why I say sled pushes or walking upstairs are great times to practice this. I still practice it when I'm walking, but it's happening so fast. And the foot just can't do it sometimes because it needs to be trained to do it. It needs the strength. It needs those tight restrictions and degenerative patterns that are in there, which are just stiffness, right? Stiffness, breakdown that we need to break up, right? So there's always a weakness combined with a rigidity. You know, there's a yin to the yang there. It's like we can't just strengthen. We got to break garbage up. And that's everything we're doing in foundation training. We're strengthening, we're stretching out what's tight and restricted. Shall we take it from the top one more time? Maybe from this angle. And the hips kind of here. What I'll see standing is I'll feel this trochanter bone sticking posterior. I can feel the tightness along the trochanter where that glute attaches. And so the correction there, like I said, if we're just thinking about the hip, can't just rotate in. It can't. Everything else is going to go. The ankle and the knee. I have to get it somewhat out of the socket first. I have to spread the floor. And that's why we need the ball, the big toe, the toes up, ball, the big toe, down. Spread from that ball, the big toe. And you'll notice the knee cave shall diminish there. It'll diminish more and more and more. Try and get the knee straight. People always get so surprised. They say, my knee, it's just collapsed on one side. It's not both sides. It's never both sides. They're like so surprised. Very rarely there'll be some weird accident. It's pretty much always compressed on one side over the other. Right? And I'm not saying everyone's got this knee cave. I just see it a lot, so I'm addressing it. You might be like, I have the opposite problem. Okay, then we need to, you're already there, then just gather the floor, right? You might already be out here living on the outside edge of the foot then. But I see this pattern a lot where the knee is caved, medial arch is collapsed. So lifting the toes, we get that medial arch to lift up, it activates. It's almost like you're lifting yourself with your medial arch. Then I can get a good secure grip with the outside edge of the foot. So I can gather and rotate in. The inward anchor should rotate in. We talked about your adductor doing that. You'll feel a lot more. Adductor, pubic bone down to femur. And also our hip flexor runs from our spine, lumbar spine, iliacus, go to this lesser trochanter. So if sometimes hip flexor is pulling it, but they're supposed to work, but if they're spinning it, if it's already compressed, they're just gonna make it worse. If we get it right, and then we get the hip flexor to activate properly, it's gonna help securely hold this in socket where it should be. It's gonna be more straight into the socket, not at a funky angle. And that's where we'll get the spurring and the impingement syndromes, because the hip just can't go. It's too jammed up and it's at a funny angle. Too much lateral rotation. All right, so that's not on both sides usually, but in a general aspect, it is. I'll just see it worse on one side more than the other. All right, and then there's lots of stuff to talk about up the chain, but I think we get the feet first. It helps so much. It's the further part of the foundation, right?